Welcome back to Eagle Discovery. Today, we've got a story full of twists. The U.S. Navy intercepted a cargo ship tied to Venezuela's President Maduro, and it wasn't carrying electronics like it was supposed to. Instead, it had millions in illegal gold, priceless artifacts, and cash. This operation is a huge blow to Maduro's regime. Let's dive in. The Angelos Ship caught red-handed in the Caribbean. In a daring operation in the Caribbean, the U.S. Navy successfully intercepted the Angelos, a cargo ship believed to have links to the Venezuelan government. The ship had just departed from La Guaira port in Venezuela, a known hub for international shipping, and was initially reported to be transporting a routine cargo of commercial electronics, including televisions, phones, and computer components. However, U.S. intelligence had been closely monitoring suspicious maritime routes and had intercepted communications, suggesting that the Angelos was involved in something far more nefarious. After tracking the vessel for several days, Navy forces moved in, stopping it just outside the Caribbean waters. Upon boarding the ship, they uncovered a massive smuggling operation hidden beneath the surface of what appeared to be legitimate cargo. The Angelos was carrying an enormous amount of contraband, millions of dollars worth of gold bars, some of them bearing marks that linked them directly to Venezuelan state-controlled gold reserves. In addition to the gold, the ship was loaded with priceless historical artifacts, some of which were thought to have been stolen from museums and private collections in Latin America. The ship also carried large sums of cash, much of it in U.S. dollars, which appeared to be part of a larger money laundering operation. Investigators suspect that the ship was involved in an illicit trade network connected to various corrupt organizations, including those with ties to the Venezuelan government. The operation raised alarms not only about illegal gold mining and the trafficking of cultural artifacts, but also about the involvement of state actors in facilitating these crimes. This interception highlights the ongoing struggle against organized crime in the region and has intensified scrutiny on the ports in Venezuela, which have become increasingly notorious for being gateways for illicit goods. The U.S. Navy's swift action in seizing the Angelos and its cargo sent a clear message to those operating in the shadows of the Caribbean trade routes, showing that international law enforcement agencies are keeping a close watch on such illegal activities. What did they find on the ship? When U.S. military forces boarded the Angelos, they were prepared to find a standard shipment of commercial electronics. However, what they discovered inside the containers was far from ordinary. Instead of the expected tech products like smartphones, computers, and televisions, the ship was actually carrying a staggering haul of contraband, massive quantities of gold bars, stacks of cash, and priceless cultural artifacts, all concealed beneath the layers of seemingly legitimate cargo. The gold alone was estimated to be worth a jaw-dropping $350 million, with some bars carrying distinctive marks that linked them to Venezuelan state-owned mines. Authorities believe this gold was being illicitly extracted and smuggled out of the country, bypassing official channels. The shipment also contained millions of U.S. dollars and euros, further fueling suspicions that the Angelos was involved in laundering the proceeds of illegal activities. The cash was likely accumulated from a variety of illicit sources, including Venezuela's oil revenues, which have long been suspected of being funneled through unofficial channels to evade international sanctions. The smuggling operation was also believed to be part of a larger money laundering scheme, with the funds being moved through the Caribbean to various destinations. In addition to the gold and money, the ship was carrying numerous valuable artifacts from Venezuela's rich cultural heritage. These artifacts, which included ancient sculptures and relics, were believed to have been stolen from museums and private collections across the country. Authorities are now working to trace the origins of these items and return them to their rightful owners. The discovery of this vast hidden treasure highlighted the extent of the illegal trade networks operating in the region and raised significant concerns about the involvement of government officials and organized crime groups in facilitating such operations. How did the U.S. Navy pull it off? The operation to intercept the Angelos was nothing short of a military masterpiece. With months of intelligence gathering and meticulous planning, the U.S. Navy orchestrated a high-risk, high-reward mission to stop the vessel before it could complete its illicit journey. The operation began with a coordinated effort involving multiple military units. 4 assault boats were swiftly dispatched from a nearby Navy ship, each manned with specially trained personnel ready to board the Angelos at a moment's notice. Meanwhile, a combat helicopter flew overhead, keeping a close watch on the ship's movements and providing real-time surveillance to ensure the Navy team had full visibility of the situation. As the Angelos tried to flee or resist, the crew of the ship was quickly overwhelmed. The Navy's tactical response was lightning fast, ensuring minimal resistance. On board, the crew attempted to take evasive actions, but they were no match for the precision and strength of the Navy's assault forces. Within hours, U.S. forces had gained full control of the ship, securing the vessel and preventing it from continuing its journey. During the operation, the Navy also detained the crew members and arrested 2 Venezuelan soldiers who were reportedly on board, allegedly providing security for the shipment. Their presence raised further suspicions about the involvement of the Venezuelan government in this illicit operation. The success of this mission was due to a combination of months of surveillance, intelligence analysis, and well-executed coordination between different military units. The operation not only disrupted a major illegal smuggling ring, but also sent a powerful message to those involved in similar criminal activities across the Caribbean and beyond. The U.S. Navy is watching, and they won't hesitate to act. The hidden treasure, a shocking discovery. When U.S. forces boarded the Angelos, they were expecting to find the routine cargo of commercial electronics, items like computers, phones, and televisions. However, what they uncovered was far more shocking and valuable than anyone could have anticipated. Inside the containers, instead of the expected tech products, they found a hidden treasure trove of illicit goods, including gold bars, bundles of cash, and priceless historical artifacts. The gold alone was worth hundreds of millions of dollars, but the real surprise came when the forces discovered the stolen cultural treasures that were being smuggled out of Venezuela. These priceless artifacts, which included ancient statues, ceremonial objects, and relics from pre-Columbian civilizations, had been carefully hidden among the cargo. Experts believe these items were likely being trafficked to be sold on the international black market, where they would fetch enormous prices from collectors and illegal traders. Altogether, the cargo was valued at over $500 million, an astounding sum that raised serious concerns about the scale of the smuggling operation. The Angelos was on its way to Central America, a key transit point for illegal shipments in the region. From there, it was set to make its way to Europe, a notorious destination for laundering stolen assets and smuggled goods. This well-known route is frequently used to traffic illicit wealth, including Venezuela's state-owned resources like gold and artifacts, bypassing international sanctions and the global financial system. The discovery of this hidden treasure highlighted not only the sheer scale of the illegal trade, but also the extent to which organized crime groups and corrupt officials were exploiting Venezuela's resources. The Angelos was just one example of many vessels used to secretly move wealth out of the country, but its interception has now thrown a wrench in these operations and sparked a broader investigation into the network of smugglers and their international connections. The international impact and reactions. The interception of the Angelos sent shockwaves across the globe, with reactions rippling through governments, international organizations, and the global media. For the U.S., this operation was seen as a significant step in their ongoing efforts to disrupt the illegal activities tied to Venezuelan President Nicolas Maduro's government. It wasn't just about stopping a single smuggling operation. It was part of a broader strategy to target the Venezuelan regime's illicit financial activities, which have been linked to illegal gold mining, oil smuggling, and money laundering. The seizure of the Angelos sent a powerful message that illegal trade and state-sponsored corruption will not go unchallenged. The U.S. Navy's success was hailed by many as a victory for international law enforcement, and a sign of the U.S.'s commitment to combating global smuggling networks. However, the operation also ignited strong reactions from Venezuela, where President Nicolas Maduro and his officials accused the U.S. of acting with imperial aggression. Maduro's government claimed that the Navy's interception was a blatant violation of Venezuela's sovereignty, arguing that the country had every right to control its own maritime routes and defend its economic interests. Venezuelan officials quickly condemned the operation, framing it as part of the U.S.'s broader strategy to destabilize Venezuela and undermine its government. Maduro's administration dismissed the accusations of illegal activities, asserting that the Angelos was simply transporting legitimate cargo. This response sparked a diplomatic clash between the two nations, further deepening the rift between Venezuela and the U.S. On the international stage, the operation also raised concerns about the broader implications for global trade and security. Some countries expressed support for the U.S.'s actions, emphasizing the importance of tackling transnational crime and protecting cultural heritage from theft and illegal trafficking. Others, particularly in Latin America, were more cautious, wary of the potential for escalating tensions between the U.S. and Venezuela, which could have destabilizing effects on the region. The global reaction to this event underscores the complex and often contentious nature of international law enforcement, particularly when it intersects with political and economic power struggles. The Angelos incident has brought greater attention to Venezuela's illicit trade networks and the role they play in financing the country's government, prompting further investigations into how wealth is being moved out of Venezuela and into the global black market. Political fallout. Is Maduro losing his grip? The interception of the Angelos came at a time when President Nicolas Maduro's government was already facing increasing domestic and international pressure. The operation itself was a clear indication of the growing scrutiny and efforts by the U.S. and other international actors to clamp down on Venezuela's illicit activities, which have been a significant source of funding for the regime. The illegal funds found on the Angelos, including gold, cash, and smuggled artifacts, exposed the deep levels of corruption within the government and highlighted just how far Maduro's administration is willing to go to bypass international sanctions and maintain its hold on power. The Angelos incident was not just an isolated event. It added to a series of revelations about the Venezuelan government's involvement in illicit trade, money laundering, and exploitation of the country's natural resources. These discoveries have further tarnished Maduro's international image, already damaged by accusations of human rights abuses and authoritarian rule. The growing evidence of corruption has led to calls for greater action from the international community, including tougher sanctions, and has placed even more pressure on Venezuela's faltering economy. Shortly after the Angelos operation, Venezuela's political landscape became even more unstable. Maduro's inner circle began to fracture as several high-level advisors and ministers resigned, citing the president's increasingly autocratic decision-making and lack of transparency. Many of these officials, who had once been loyal allies, expressed concerns that Maduro was sidelining his own government and consolidating power in the hands of a few trusted individuals, leading to a rise in infighting and discontent within the ruling elite. The cracks within Maduro's leadership raised serious questions about the future of his regime. As key advisors and military leaders distanced themselves from the president, the possibility of a leadership vacuum or even a power struggle within the government became more likely. This internal instability, combined with the growing external pressure, suggests that Maduro's hold on power may be weakening. If the Venezuelan president continues to alienate those around him, it remains to be seen how long he will be able to maintain control. The erosion of support within his own ranks, coupled with the mounting international isolation, paints a picture of a regime on shaky ground. While Maduro may still have loyal supporters, particularly within the military, the events surrounding the Angelos have underscored the growing challenges he faces in keeping his grip on power. The ultimate question is whether his fractured leadership and the mounting pressure from abroad will be enough to bring about his downfall. What's next for Venezuela? As the world closely watches the aftermath of the Angelos interception, the U.S. operation has already set the stage for heightened political tensions in the region. The U.S. move, though celebrated by many for disrupting illicit activities, has drawn sharp criticism from Venezuela's allies, such as Russia and China, who condemned the actions as an infringement on Venezuela's sovereignty and an act of imperial aggression. These nations, which have maintained political and economic support for Maduro's government, have further strained relations with the U.S., exacerbating geopolitical tensions in Latin America. However, the biggest challenge for Venezuela is internal. The political chaos that has been brewing for years seems to be reaching a tipping point. Maduro's government is increasingly divided, with key members of his inner circle resigning or publicly distancing themselves from the president. The fragmentation of his political base, combined with mounting discontent among the population due to the country's worsening economic conditions, signals a period of deepening instability. As the pressure builds, the risk of a political crisis or even a shift in leadership grows. If Maduro's grip on power continues to weaken, the consequences could be far-reaching, not just for Venezuela, but for the entire region. Venezuela's political and economic collapse could lead to further mass migration, exacerbating the refugee crisis that is already affecting neighboring countries, especially Colombia and Brazil. In addition, the increasing isolation of Venezuela from the international community, combined with the continuing economic meltdown, hyperinflation, and shortages of basic goods, will likely worsen the living conditions of its citizens, potentially triggering more widespread unrest and protests. Venezuela's future will hinge on several critical factors. First, whether Maduro can maintain control amid the growing fractures in his administration. Second, whether the international community, including regional actors like the U.S., Colombia, and others, will intensify efforts to isolate or pressure Venezuela further. Finally, the ongoing economic crisis, driven by the collapse of the oil industry, the devaluation of the bolivar, and the effects of sanctions, will continue to be a major factor in shaping the country's trajectory. The ultimate question is whether Maduro's regime can withstand this growing internal and external pressure, or if Venezuela will see a dramatic shift in leadership that could pave the way for a new chapter in its turbulent history. The Angelos incident highlights the lengths to which Maduro's regime is willing to go to circumvent sanctions, and the U.S. will stop at nothing to prevent it. But this is just the beginning. Expect more developments as pressure on Venezuela builds. The situation is far from over, and things are only going to get more intense. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and share if you want to stay updated on this and more fascinating stories. Thanks for watching, and see you in the next video.